Hello everyone and welcome to the channel on Linology. Today we are going to study about diversity in the living world. When we talk about biology subject, the first thing we need to understand is about the living organisms. So let's begin. Biodiversity, that is the variety of living organisms present on the surface of earth together, that is biodiversity. But we are not only talking about living organism, but altogether about its habitat, about their interrelationship and how they survive together, how they are dependent on each other. When we study all these aspects together, then it is known as biodiversity. It is said that about 1.7 to 1.8 million of biodiversity is present on the surface right now, but still many are not discovered. So this number will quietly get changed in future. So first of all, what do you mean by life? How you will say that particular matter or thing is living being or not, or living thing or not? So basically there are several characteristics of being a living organism. First of all the sort of living organism shows the characteristics like growth. The growth is the characteristic in all the living organism including plants and animals, but there is key difference in that plants growth is indeterminate you and unlimited. You cannot say that this particular plant will only grow till this particular height or size. That is indeterminate. They can grow in any of this extent, or maybe sometimes due to number of reasons they cannot grow to the normal state. Secondly, in animals the growth is determinate and limited. Growth is related to development, but development is not related to growth. Growth will take place when the development of the organism is also going to take place with it, but it is not compulsory that development will going to take place only when the growth happens. Development is another independent process, growth is the another independent process. Okay, the second one is reproduction. All the living organisms from a single cell microorganisms to the complex structures like human beings, all the sort of living organism can perform the process of reproduction, whether it's a asexual method or by the sexual method, but they will going to produce their offspring showing the similar characteristics. There are certain organisms which can be sterile or cannot have the future generation or offspring. So in that case the reproduction do not becomes a important characteristic, but maximum of the variety of organism perform it, so it becomes a key mark or landmark in the characteristic of living organisms. Then responsiveness to stimuli. All the sort of living organism will give to response to the environmental factors or the stimulus which they receive. When the responsiveness comes, generally we think that animals like us or animals like tiger, lion, etc. can give response to the environmental stimulus, but you have to keep in mind even a small unicellular microorganism give response to the stimulus in the environment. So this is one of the compulsory process happening in all sort of living organisms. There can be certain questions over it, but internally all the cells can perform the function of it, giving response to number of chemical reactions or happening inside the body. That's why it's happening in every cell of the individual, or maybe in the unicellular organisms also. Next one is nutrition. All the sort of living organism require food for the energy and survival, whether it can be in any of the form, whether the plants are autotrophic or the organism is heterotrophic, everything will going to require the nutrition. Okay, because nutrition gives you the energy producing components, maybe in organic or inorganic form, and then only the energy which you receive will going to give you the number of factors to develop, like growth, then reactions happening inside the body, the energy required to perform the locomotion, that is movements, etc. Then respiration. This is also a characteristic of all the living organism. They can be aerobic or anaerobic, but respiration is a compulsory process. Do not get confused that only oxygen is involved in the respiration. Respiration is just a process of exchange of gases, okay? Whether it is in a form of aerobic or anaerobic condition, the respiration will compulsorily take place. Next one is movement, or for the moving organisms like locomotion, okay? So movement happens in all the living organisms. In plants, the movement is not seen by shifting from one place to another, but the movement can be seen with respect to the growth. Like the plant grows towards the sun, that is phototropic in nature. Then the roots grow towards the water, hydrotropic or geotropic in nature. Similarly, the animals show the locomotion. They can change their place from one to another with the help of their feet, or maybe they are walking on four of the legs. So in this manner the locomotion happens in the animals. Next one is excretion. Now whenever we eat food, maximum of it is utilized in the form of nutrients which supply you energy, but some of it will get generated as a waste in your body. There is no role of that particular component inside your body, so that waste has to be excreted out of the body or eliminated out from the body, so that you get a space for another nutrition components, so for the constant supply of the energy. So excretion is also a compulsory process happening in all the sort of living organism, from microorganisms till animals, okay? The last one which I will going to explain is about metabolism. Metabolism is a biochemical reaction actually happening inside the cell, which give rise to energy or utilization of energy, because it is of two types. First is catabolism. Whatever nutrients your cell receive in the body, in all the sort of living organisms, whatever nutrients the cell receive, it breaks down to release the energy, and that's why it is known as exergonic reaction or catabolism. Another one is anabolism, in which the synthesis of the components takes place in the cell, for example proteins, okay? And then this particular reaction requires the energy, so that's why they are known as endogonic reaction or anabolism. Growth, reproduction, responsiveness, nutrition, respiration, movement, excretion, all this process requires the energy which is supplied by the biochemical reaction, that is metabolism. Apart from that, responsiveness to stimuli, which I talk about, this particular characteristic you may have question over, like if a person is in coma, they are not giving response to any of the stimulus in their surrounding, but inside their body the tissues are showing the interrelationship, the cells are constantly working and they are utilizing all the nutrients, they are supplying the energy for the survival, and at the same time whatever components the cell receive, they are giving response to that. That's why they are also considered in this particular living kingdom, okay? Do not get confused over it. The next is systematics. Now first of all, understand the meaning of systematics. When you study about living organism, their relationship, how the evolution happened, when you read all these components in a systematic manner, it is a systematics. Now systematics include three phases. First is identification. Whenever there is new discovery or any organism is discovered, you have to first identify to which group it belongs, whether it's a new organism, completely a new one, do not belong to any of the group, or whether it is having a particular features or characters which are also known as keys. Yes, keys means characteristics, similar characteristics which is likely to have fall under the category of specific group. So this kind of identification has to be done of the organism. Then classification based on the characteristic. अभी कितने characteristic कहाँ से उसको मैच हो रहे हैं, वो किस ग्रुप में जाएगा, कैसे जाएगा, वो पूरी तरह उस ग्रुप में फिट बैठेगा या नहीं, इसकी स्टडी बहुत डिटेल में की जाती है and then they make a scientific grouping of the identified organism. After all this thing, नेम हैज़ टू बी गिवन. अब भाई नया नया मेंबर आया है ग्रुप में तो उसको नाम तो देना पड़ेगा. सो बेसिकली nomenclature इज अ साइंस ऑफ गिविंग नेम टू द पर्टिकुलर organism. I hope this much is. Let's move forward. Contribution of some scientists in the field of systematics. अब हमने ये तो पढ़ लिया कि भाई लिविंग ऑर्गेनिजम्स क्या होते हैं, उनके कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स क्या हैं. इसके अलावा हमने देखा कि भाई एक सिस्टमेटिक नाम का भी सब्जेक्ट होता है बायोलॉजी में, जिसको हम कहेंगे कि भाई सही तरीके से सिस्टमैटिक मैनर में स्टेप बाय स्टेप हम लोग किसी लिविंग ऑर्गेनिज्म को स्टडी करते हैं. बट देयर आर द रीजन्स वाई वी स्टडी इट. अगर किसी को ये सब्जेक्ट नहीं पसंद तो आपको पता है कि आपको किसको जाके मारना है. Just joking, all they have died up till now. But there are several contribution of number of scientists who has worked in this field of systematics to make us understand that what is present in our surrounding and why there is a difference, why we have to group them and why we have to study it in a groups, or how to identify, how to do the classification, how to give the nomenclature names. All these things were in the study by one of the greatest mind of their times, and this is a series of history of it, starting from the Hippocrates and Aristotle. These two scientists were the first one who started to separate the living organism into animals and plants. Hippocrates is known as father of medicine, while Aristotle is also known as father of zoology, because he introduced a subject. Okay, then Historia Animalium, this book you have to keep in mind, it was written by Aristotle, and this is having several references towards the classification of plants and animals. Then second one is Theoparatus, is also known as father of botany. He divided plants into several groups, and in his book Historia Plantarum he has referred all these components. Then Pliny the Elder, he wrote the book Historia Naturalis. He also introduced the artificial classification systems in the systematics. Then John Ray, he in his book Historia Generalis Plantarum described about number of plants, and he was the one who gave the term keys, that means characteristics or characters. Then come the Carolus Linnaeus, who in his books Species Plantarum and Systema Naturae, for the first time he was the one who used the term systema, which means systematic or system, and from there only systematics, this term was used for the study of biological field in detail. Then father of new systematics, this credit is going to Sir Julian Huxley, and the Darwin of 20th century, this credit is given to Ernst Mayr. There are certain nomenclature codes. Basically they are the group that who decide that what name has to be given to the organism which has been identified for the first time, and how to put them in a particular group. So the naming codes are decided for the several living organism. For the group of algae, fungi and plants, there is International Code of Nomenclature for algae, fungi and plants, that is ICN, which replaced actually the old nomenclature code, that is the International Code of Botanical Nomenclature. Then animals, the name of animals is decided by International Code of Zoological Nomenclature. For bacteria and archaea, the old one was replaced. The old one was the International Code of Nomenclature of Bacteria, that is ICNB, which is now replaced by International Code of Nomenclature of Prokaryotes, because bacteria and archaebacteria or archaea falls in prokaryotes. Then cultivated plants, if you want to give name to it, the International Code of Nomenclature for cultivated plant is ready for you. Then plant associations, if you want to if you are studying about interrelationship among the plants, and if you want to give name to that particular associations or interrelationships, then the code for that is International Code of Phytosociological Nomenclature. Then for the viruses, the International Code of Virus Classification and Nomenclature. There are different type of specimens which we have to study, or about which we take the references. Types of specimens from form the part of biological collections which we keep either in museums or universities for the research purposes or for the study purposes. First is a holotype. It is a original prototype which is cited by a scientist or the author for the first time, and this is for the reference of study. It is cited by the author just to study about a new discovery which he might have done, and he mentioned about it for the first time. Then is the syntype. It refers to any of two or more specimens cited by an author where there is no holotype. First, for example, suppose any specimen is not there. For example, like before electron microscope, everyone knew about viruses, but the structure of viruses was not known as it was not seen under the compound microscope. So they used to give only the references of it. The detailed structure was never mentioned correctly or properly. But similarly, if suppose a holotype is not there, so syntype is used, or several citations are used by author to describe a organism. Then lectotype. It is a specimen selected from the original matter when there is no holotype available for it. Then paratype or cotype. These are actually used nowadays together. Otherwise, previously cotype was mentioned separately, but now they means the same, so they are used together. Representation of the specimen other than the holotype, or with holotype the citation has to be done for it. Then paralectotype means they are the actually original specimens, but also designated for the original. They are not maybe original completely, but they are designated to be being the original specimens. Then neotype. It's a new type of nomenclature, and when the holotype is not available, this particular neotype has to be done. Allotype. It is a designated specimen of opposite sex to that of the holotype. I hope all these things are clear to you. In the next part, we will going to study about the scientific naming and taxonomy. Till then, keep learning, stay healthy, and thank you for listening.